All
All
right.
right, I'll kick it off and introduce everyone. I'm Tori Mellott. I'm the style director at Schumacher, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And today I'm so excited to be talking to Julie Masuko from Masuko Warner, which is a design firm in Seattle, Washington. And Julie, so today we're going to be talking about color, about trends, kind of about your approach to design, which is, I always find partnerships are so fascinating and interesting. So I definitely want to know about that a little bit. But I think the first question is, I definitely am familiar with your work, and I feel like you guys are really known for color.
Mhm.
Um, why do you love color? What does it do for you for design?
Well, I think it makes a really happy space. Even prior to moving, so we started our business in San Francisco, which is plenty sunny. I mean, despite the fog, it's sunny. It's California. And so even before moving to the Pacific Northwest, Melissa and I just loved color. I think when we started our business just about 13 years ago, a little more than 13 years ago, we did a room at the Decorator Showcase House. I don't know why they took a chance on us. And we were very fixated on like bright tangerine. And it was definitely a year when it was olive green and like charcoal and brown. And so we did this guest bedroom, and I think we were installing it, and we were kind of like, oh, I think we might have missed here. Like our room is like an orange. But to the contrary, it people really loved it, and we've always both really liked color, and so that's just kind of always been our go-to. And more so when I moved to the Pacific Northwest, when I moved to Seattle. I mean, I was afraid. There was a few years there I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get hired here because it is the Northwest. People like really neutral a lot of the time, and the skies are really gray. It's really green here, but it's really gray a lot of the year. And so color became even, I think, more important. Hence, I mean, I'm working from my home today, and I dress in a lot of color. I typically decorate with a lot of color for myself, for clients. Not always, but it creates a mood, I think, for us. And I think, kind of became our signature early on. We do more neutral projects here and there, but I think the majority of people that look in our portfolio would think what you said, which is, oh, you guys are kind of known for like bolder colors.
Definitely. That's what I feel like I know you for, your work. Okay, wait, I have a quick question about your when do you guys ever have colors that you disagree on?
Not really.
No.
No, not really. And so Melissa's in LA. So we have an office in LA. My business partner Melissa Warner is in LA. I'm in Seattle. But we were in the same city for a long time, and we often for out of town jobs will go together. No, it's a little bit uncanny. We'll pull the same fabric.
Oh,
So
wow.
like
Okay.
a new fabric or something, we both pull it, and it's like, oh, look what I want to use here. Look what I'm using on this sofa. It's like, oh, well, I'm upholstering walls in that
Oh,
type.
that's so funny. So you no, but do you have do you each sort of do you work on projects together or separately?
Both.
Okay.
So I would say the majority of projects we work on separately. We have a lot of clients that are longtime clients who know one of us or the other, although we're virtually interchangeable. But then we've found that, especially since we've both had kids, it's very nice to have someone to help the out of town jobs. So you're not constantly going. I mean, pre-COVID, there were a lot of jobs, some jobs even on the East Coast. And so it was really nice to have like a tag team, like, okay, I went last month to the site just so we weren't going as frequently. So sometimes we do join up forces and sometimes we're separate. Just kind of, it's just job dependent.
Okay, very cool. I love to learn about that, about a partnership. I think it's such an interesting way, to have a design business. I think it's really cool. It's how I would want to if I had a design business. Like, I feel like two heads are always better than one. Um, no, I want to go back to color for a minute because that's really what we're here about. How do you make color approachable to your clients? I like you said, a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest, at least I guess, sort of you assume that they're really into neutrals. Like, how do you sell color to them? And I guess is it ever hard? Like, do you ever run into a situation where the client's just like not getting it, and what do you do?
Well, there's different ways to go about kind of what we're putting color on. So I would say it's not like we're typically specifying like a grass green carpet or even a bright red wall or a bright pink sofa. I think there has to be a continuity. And so oftentimes for us, it's either through architecture, it's through how you do the larger surfaces. So walls can go, I mean, we're big fans of wallpaper too, but if you have a more neutral backdrop in the paint and definitely a tie-in, like with all the crown molding, all the baseboards being a consistent color, whether it's white or white's a nice tie-in or some other kind of neutral background. I think it's all about the mix. So it's also for us about patterns. So when we do a lot of color, I think we also tend to mix in patterns because that's how they tie in. And it really comes down to also small details. So I tell clients who see a big swatch of, we were working on an outdoor project the other day and we had this really vibrant turquoise color. And she said, well, are you going to do my, 9-foot sofa in that out here?
Uh-oh, I think you're frozen. Yikes.
I think Julie froze for a minute. This is Gina
Yes.
from the World Design Center. We'll give her a second to see if she can come back on.
Yes. If not, my 9-year-old is offering to help us get a connection.
Well, your 9-year-old probably knows more about Zoom at this point.
Totally. Wait, Julie, are you back? Oh no. Okay.
We'll give her another minute here. I'm going to sneeze.
I feel like when this happens, like Zoom should kick in some like elevator music.
I can do that. I know how to play music now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, we'll give her a minute here. Maybe
Okay.
a message.
What do you do, Gina? What do you do in this situation when someone's frozen like this?
Usually it kicks back on quickly. So
Does it? Okay.
she'll come back on. But why don't, since she's frozen, I'll message her. But
Okay.
Tori, you tell us a little bit about your favorite use of color personally as the style director.
Yes, I will do that until Julie comes back on.
Yeah.
So I have, as I just mentioned, I actually have 2 daughters. I have 9-year-old twins, and they're always like, "Mommy, what's your favorite?" Are you back?
Yeah,
There
sorry,
she is.
I don't know what's happening. I was
Because I was about to fill the space with some like crazy story that nobody wants to hear about.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Okay, so wait, so we were talking about like how you sell color to clients and how you if you ever run into anyone who just kind of doesn't really understand a color combination, like how do you make it so that they do understand and they sort of get where you're trying to go?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is balance. So, and I always try to tell clients, you're seeing it works both ways. You're seeing a small 6x6 sample, but I'm talking about using this on your sofa. But then you're seeing a giant, other piece that's only going to be like a little pillow. So it's a little bit about balance. And I think for the most part, I think most clients hire us with the expectation that there's probably some color. We have clients who like varying levels of color, or who like, we have a client who only likes blues and whites with the occasional orange thrown in, which is fine. And so I think it's just more about balance for us too. When we use color, we really try hard to mix it in with details. So whether it's in a lampshade, it could be a pillow trim, it's welting. I think there has to be little bits and patterns. I mean, patterns help connect colors so much, because if the drapery fabric maybe has 6 colors, then the bolder sofa isn't as scary for them, I guess. So we just try to, I think, apply color at a level that clients are comfortable with. Everyone's different. I mean, we have clients who are definitely up for a tangerine orange grass cloth on their dining room walls, but not everybody. So I think when you start looking kind of through our portfolio, there's varying levels. It all feels colorful, but when you start looking, it's like, oh, that room is kind of pale, but there happens to be like a bright pink ottoman or something.
Well, that brings me to my next question is, what is the biggest risk you've taken with color? And let's say you get a client who they're like color crazy and you're like, wow, this is a lot. Like we have to figure out a way to temper this and tone it down. How do you do that?
Yeah, I'd say, well, the biggest risk we've probably taken is when we've lacquered entire rooms, which is one of our favorite things to do. We definitely have done that. I can think of a project maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and this client liked color, but I would say the husband and wife liked varying amounts of color. He would have been fine with just like red pillows and call it a day. And she was like, well, can we lacquer a room? And so we ultimately lacquered her office. It was a risk, but I think when you have elements that tie in other places in the house, whether it's a floor finish, whether it's the style of cabinetry, in this case, it was the rest of her house, all the cabinet profiles matched. Her office happened to be lacquered in a teal color, and it had bright orange leather wall. So it was just completely saturated. And so I think it just, there is a risk. What we never like to do, and we always try to tell clients, let's not do a showcase house for you where it looks like somebody just went in each room and did like a theme or a different, I don't like that. I don't want it to look like different kind of themes in each room or color theme, like the pink room, the red room. So there has to be, and it might be a pattern, like maybe it's not that we ever typically repeat a pattern from room to room, but it has to be something about scale and the amount of pattern maybe in each room. Or, okay, you can do a bright grass cloth on one, room's wall, but we're not going to do the room right next to it with another grass cloth that's a solid color, because that's when you start getting into, it looks like a showroom or a showcase house to me.
Right.
So,
I see what you're saying. Now, you did say earlier in our conversation about when you mix color, you typically bring in a lot of patterns too. Do you have any tips for mixing patterns?
use what you like. I mean, I think the biggest thing I found out when I've been designing my own house is go to what you gravitate towards. Don't think that if you don't like plaid and you're like, well, I should really use this fabric because it has all my colors. You don't like it now, you're not going to make yourself like it. So pick what you like and then figure out. I think there's a bit of there's no hard and fast rules when mixing patterns. I think mixing scales is good. I don't generally like to see a room with all one scale. There can be exceptions, but maybe you'll have a bigger scale, you can have a smaller scale. It could certainly be all florals or geometrics and florals, but it's nice to have a mix of, I think, both scale. And then typically, I think our only rule is, I think Melissa and I both tend to use with pattern, it's like if you're going to mix prints, we usually mix just prints with prints and not a bunch of textured patterns like jacquards in there. There's something about the quality of prints mixing better with prints, and certainly solids and textures, but not patterns that are maybe a jacquard or a damask or something with printed things is not something that we usually do.
Okay, so no wovens in prints.
Wovens, yes, but not with a like I wouldn't use a woven floral pattern, if that makes sense, like a printed floral.
Right. So like a woven, a solid woven, you're okay with.
Definitely, or a diamond or a geometric or something.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Or a stripe.
It is damask and like a jacquard. They go so formal. It's like
they go formal, and there's a different depth to the pattern, I think, versus like a block print, like a Molly Mahone block print or something with like a very heavy, or not even heavy. It could be light colors, but a tone on tone kind of jacquard woven floral. For whatever reason, those aren't things that we usually mix together.
Right.
They feel like they're a different animal.
Well, I wonder, this question isn't on our list, but like, I wonder if all of that very heavy damask, silk, Versailles, taffeta, like, sort of like high 80s balloon curtain situation. Yeah. Like, I wonder if that is going to have a moment again. Obviously, it will be reinterpreted, but do you think that's going to come back, or is that just or do people just not live that formally anymore?
I mean, it's possible. If I didn't anticipate like 90s fashion coming back, 80s, sure. And now I'm showing my age. Maybe 80s I can have a good recollection of that. But if you told me like, oh, 90s style is going to be here, I'd be like, oh, really? That feels too soon. I don't know. 80s it could.
No, it does feel too soon. I get it. It's like, wait, I feel like I just did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too soon. Like I might have some of that stuff in storage. I know what that looks like. So.
Well, all I know is we're really in trouble if like the True Religion jean, like the low slung jean comes back. And then I'm going to be kicking myself that I didn't like save my 400 pairs.
Yeah, exactly.
that I could like sell on Poshmark or something. All right, let's go back to wall covering. Wall covering, certainly for Schumacher, and I think for a lot of designers, wall covering is really having a moment. Very popular. Lots of homeowners are, and I feel like you and I we've been seeing wall covering having sort of a resurgence for the last, I would say, 15 years. But
Mhm.
some homeowners are just kind of like getting into it. They're like, okay, I
Right.
finally get it. This is really cool. What's your favorite room to use wallpaper in? And what's the most unique application that you've used wall covering? Like how have
Ooh,
you applied it in a really
that's
interesting way?
that is like asking about your favorite child. I would put wall covering in every single room most of the time. I have to say one of
Every
my
room? Every room. Wait, every room.
I would. I would put it in
Okay.
my dining room. It's in my entry. I will say one of my favorite ways to use it. I love putting it on a ceiling. As long as the walls are either lacquer or a different wallpaper. I love it when it's on a ceiling, and I think that can be so charming in a bedroom. I actually really love it in a kitchen because I think kitchens can be instantly warmed up. It's not installed, or I was hoping to do Instagram live from there, but my closet is getting built in, and it has all these door panels, and it's going to be Schumacher's flower shock in the panels in a
Oh, nice.
color. And so I love it. I love it for doors, like in a whole row. It's great too. I mean, hallways. I just don't think you can go wrong. But I guess top ones would be like ceilings, hallways, maybe especially if you don't have tons of stuff on your wall. I just think it just can really warm things up.
Right. Now, if you're in one of those situations where one half of the couple is like, I really love wall covering everywhere, and the other half of the couple, be it the man or the woman or the who knows what, if they're like, I really need like a palate cleanser, like a sorbet
Mhm.
course where I just need to like rest my eyes, how do you give that to them? Are you like, okay, I'm going to do a bedroom, a den, or do you kind of work with the client and
Yeah,
say,
I think work with the client. I mean, also grass cloth. I feel like that can definitely be a nice connector. So if your bathroom has a pattern, maybe the bedroom has a pattern, maybe it's the hallway that connects them or a closet area that connects them, where you say, well, it's still wallpaper, but it's not a pattern. I think it really just is job dependent.
okay. Now, speaking of couples at home and given the events of this past year, how do you think everyone's work from home situation, how do you think that's going to change floor plans? Because it's clear that most companies are going to have some sort of like optional come to work. You might not even have to come to work.
Right.
But how do you think that's going to change the floor plan? And do you think open concept floor plans, like, do you think they're over? Do you think they're toast?
Uh, Quite possibly. I think a lot of our clients never had a ton of, I think maybe because we veer a little bit more traditional or into the traditional. Yes, I think you'll see less open concept. I think we're also just going to start seeing less. I mean, a lot of the house, it's different in Manhattan, right? So it depends on the area of the country, I think. But, here in Seattle or in Los Angeles or even in the Bay Area where we do a lot of work, I think we're going to start seeing maybe you don't have a guest bedroom, or maybe I'm starting to see a lot of kind of dining rooms turned library turned could be office. If
Mhm.
people are saying, well, if this happens again, we know it could happen, and I'll be home for a year. And so it's less maybe formal dining room, but we're doing some really nice built-in shelves in a new construction job because we thought, well, it could function as a dining room, but then it could definitely also be like a really great, easy way to not have to put like a wire shelf or something in your dining room if you're working from home. So
Yes. Oh, but I know I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the open floor plan. I haven't, the verdict for me is still out if I love it or hate it. Do you love it or hate it, or do you not? I guess.
I it depends. I think it depends on the area, because in a place like a vacation home, we're working on a job in the San Juan Islands, and there is this great room, and it's a big, big open space. So I think in some houses and some, depending on what you're doing there, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Um, but I don't think you always want to be on vacation with your whole family and like have the TV on. So Yeah, when I built and designed my house, we did not do open concept. Like I want a separate kitchen. I mean, it has like a banquette in it. I like to hang out in there, but I don't want everyone to come in my front door and be like near my kitchen. That seems weird to me.
Totally. By the way, sorry, I have to turn my email off because I don't want it to ding again. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, what I have a question now. You've been in business. You said you started your business, I think 15 years ago.
Yeah, I was in business by myself for just a couple years. Yeah, about 15 or 16 years ago. And then MW, Masuka Warner, we just had our 13th anniversary. Lucky
Oh,
13. Thank
congratulations.
you.
Well, what advice would you give an up and coming designer? What advice would you give them about being selective with projects? And what would you tell someone who is maybe looking to generate more business leads and more, like more jobs in the pipeline?
I would say no matter how much you might want to take on every client that comes your way, especially when you start, don't do it. You got to trust your gut. My office is probably laughing at me right now because I've definitely, we've all done it. I think talked ourselves into a client that's not a good fit and been like, well, this hasn't happened in a long time, but it's like, oh, we're going to change our fee structure or the way that we do presentations or take on something with someone that has an unrealistic timeline. I think a lot of us who've been in business would say we've been there and done that. And I would just encourage people starting out, don't do it. Trust your gut. If your gut is telling you like, I think this is a bad fit. I love the job, but it's a bad fit. Don't do it because there's going to be more, there's going to be another job. There's going to be more something else coming around the corner. In terms of generating business, gosh, the best advice I can give is, do such a phenomenal job for your clients. You will get referred. I think that has been our main source of new business always, I think still, is that clients that love working with you and that you do a really good job for. And even if it means, there could be things that come up a couple years after you've installed the project that they say, oh gosh, I want to reupholster this. And you're thinking, oh, I am busy, but you know what, I'm going to go back and help them. If you're always kind of their go-to and you do just such a good job, I think referrals for us have been the way. So I would say that that's going to be your best bet is word of mouth referrals, I think. So I know for some designers, Instagram has been a big source of getting jobs. That hasn't really been the case with us. Some, and it's kind of more recent, but we're old enough, I think is what that says, is that we weren't bloggers to start to have a giant following to begin with. We started our Instagram a couple of years ago, but I really think for us, it's been word of mouth, not advertising. We've done, I would say, a handful of showcase houses. If you get the chance, I think we had the chance when we first took that chance on the showcase room in San Francisco. We had the chance to talk to a bunch of journalists and do a bunch of interviews. And we did it because we were like, okay, let's get our name out there. Right. In San Francisco, which is a city filled with designers. And so we were really lucky in that aspect. So I would say, the more you're out, the more you put yourself out there, the more you talk, the more kind of events you do. It's just, I don't think it's feasible to be doing showcase houses along with your real projects, like every year, maybe.
And show houses are so expensive.
They're so expensive. They take a huge amount of time and logistics, and we have a great team at this point, but when we were first doing that first showcase, it was like, okay, we're driving here, we're driving there, and we weren't moving the furniture, but it was to that level of like, oh my gosh.
Right. I know. You're like, I'll just put the wallpaper up myself.
Exactly.
So, I feel like the pandemic has really been, it's obviously been horrible for so many people, but there have been a few silver linings. And one of them has been, this renewed just passion for home, and everyone seems to be so busy. And knock on wood that it continues. But how has the pandemic, has it grown your business? Have you noticed an uptick in business from it?
Yeah, we have been fortunate to have a lot of new work that started during, which is interesting. And I think for us, it did not change the way we do business tons because we do a ton of projects that are not local to where we each live, LA or Seattle. We do projects kind of all over the country. It for us, it reinforced that, oh wow, we can do even more than we thought when we couldn't get on a plane for the last 14 months or whatever. We can do more than we thought with technology, with FaceTime. Um, Electrical walkthroughs, stuff that we were jumping on planes more for, which I think ultimately we'll go back to because there's nothing better than in person. But yeah, it's definitely grown. We've seen an uptick in vacation homes, clients buying vacation places or wanting to redo their spaces that they, had been maybe putting off a refresh. Like a fair number of clients, I want to say from like 10 or 11 years ago that called during the pandemic, like, hey, or that were moving. Partly because I think maybe some of our clients, not tons, but are in tech or live in the Bay Area, and there was kind of a, departure out of there. And so, fun because we get to work on things like a ranch in Montana or, a house in Idaho. So it's been interesting. And it's fortunately for us, it's been great because it's been really busy.
Oh, good. All right. And then I'd love to know what colors you are using a lot right now. And then I just wanted to talk about like overall trends for 2021. Could be pattern, could be color, could be kind of anything. But like what colors are you kind of like feeling right now? And also in that same vein, well, conversely, what colors have you had it with? Have you like been like, I need
Oh,
to take a break from this color?
I think it's more that I would say there's no color that I feel like we need to take a big break from. It's maybe the combinations that I'm like, okay, we can stop doing that combination.
Okay, tell me which combos are like
Oh,
driving you a
like
little nuts
brown and chocolate brown and orange. I think I'm okay if we don't do that for a
for a
long, long
while.
time. I'm really tired of like gray with orange or gray with like electric blue. That was never really our jam anyway, I feel like. But I'm kind of like, all right, that's enough. Same with I could do fine without like Carhartt pant brown and yellow. I'm okay not doing that. Like a muddy brown, like Carhartt overalls.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to recall that color brown. It's a really specific color.
It's very specific. It's not rust.
Yeah,
And I
it's
like it
like,
with other things. Like give it to me with like pink, give it to me with like pale blue. I think it's so pretty. But that and the yellow, that like marigold yellow and brown, I think I'm set with that for the time
okay.
being. We're loving bright yellow.
What would you pair with chocolate brown right now?
Chocolate brown, I think maybe mint green, bright yellow, like pale pink, pale green. I feel like we have a lot of projects right now where we're using a fair amounts of green in various shades, like emerald to lighter greens. I think blue is something we use pretty consistently across the board. It seems every project. Have a project that's more jewel toned, which is a little different I mean, I guess we do have red is not a color we use tons, although it shows up in small doses. If you looked at the portfolio, you'd be like, you're lying because I see red in like all these projects, but it's very specific. Um, yeah.
Okay. And then
No colors off.
any sort of like overarching trends, like are you feeling, like Indian block prints? Are you feeling
Yes.
like super geometric? Like what do you see coming down the pike for 2021?
I mean, it's funny. I have to laugh a little because this whole, I don't know that it's new, but the whole grand millennial trend,
Yes.
and obviously I'm not a millennial, but I laugh that it's a trend because I think Melissa and I have always done, we like a ruffled bed skirt. We like a pleated lampshade. We like a printed lampshade. We like tassels on pillows. And it's funny to me that in the past couple of years, it's been like, oh, florals and not so much crochet things, but like florals and bullion fringe and brush fringe on pillows. And it's like, well, we've always done that though. I
Yeah.
don't know why it's just like, it's maybe because younger people like it, I guess, but a lot of our clients are young-ish and they've liked it. So I have to laugh a little at that. I think block prints are definitely, they're everywhere. They're having a moment. Again, that's been something you could not ever not, I think there's block print in like 99% of our projects and has been always. It just used to be maybe you couldn't get them everywhere or as many places. And we're seeing such cool stuff come out, block printed, well, lampshades and of course table linens, but for wallpaper, block printed looking wallpaper. So I think that's definitely a trend, I would say. What else? I don't know. I think I keep seeing like ferns, like fern print and fern. For me, that goes a little bit. I kind of have like the Laura Ashley reminiscent
Right.
childhood, like where I'm like, ooh,
you get triggered.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I don't know if I'm buying into that trend. I think we typically, we often pull fabrics and they're like, either it's a classic print, like a Schumacher print that's been around forever and maybe it's been recolored, or sometimes for better or worse, we pull it and they're like, oh, that's discontinued. I'm like, well, I don't know what that says about us, but we like kind of, I don't think we do super trendy stuff. So I'm probably I don't know if I have the best handle on what is super trendy.
Well, I got to tell you, I feel like fabric houses, including Schumacher, we always discontinue the best stuff.
That's why is that? I don't know.
I don't know. I actually need to ask our VP of design, Pam Marshall. I need to ask her that because I was just in the showroom the other day walking through and I was like, oh, I forgot about this fabric. And I was like, I'm going to pull a sample. I can use that in a project that I'm working on. And I read the back and I was like, discontinued. I was like, what?
Right. I know.
I know we have to find that out. I want to open up our chat to questions. And Patricia Brown asked a great question. She said, I'm reading it. How do you decide where to start or end a paint color or wall covering when you have an open floor plan? Good question. Living room opens into a great room, which is then a family room, dining area, and then a great room. I know, Patricia, this is like how do you do this? I don't know.
Yeah, if you have any sort of either existing casing, so a door casing, an opened, and a cased opening, that can be very helpful. It depends. There are a lot of factors. If it's a double height situation, you probably shouldn't be doing wallpaper and then a paint or something like that.
It's like you have to pick a neutral white and go throughout the whole, right?
Yeah, or commit. And if you really want, if you really want a big, maybe use more of a textured wall covering, like a wool or a grass or something, or silk, depending on the application. But I think that's really tricky. That's one of the things I think when we start a project and there's mostly great room open spaces, I think, oh, bummer, it kind of a little bit, you can't get away with wallpaper. And definitely not switching paint, I think, is almost trickier.
Well, and I also find, it's funny, I am not a decorator, but my sister bought a house a couple of years back and I helped her out. And she had one of those, it was a McMansion-y open floor plan situation. And, we thought about using a grass cloth, but my worry was there were so many windows. I was like, wait a minute, I don't know how color fast this is. Like, I don't know if you're going to get fading on this side from the morning light versus this side. So we just went with like a neutral, but hers was so bad that like even the hallways, there was no break. There was no stuff. I know. I was like, why'd you buy this house? And it ended up looking fine, and you could have a lot of fun with the upholstery and the rugs and stuff like that because you were on such a blank canvas. But I also am a lover of wallpaper, and I was like, oh, guess we won't be using wallpaper anywhere. Yeah. So, Patricia, I hope that answered your question. Does anyone else want to lob a question into the Q&A, and I will read it? Okay. Well, I guess we'll wait a couple more minutes and wrap it up. So, tell us about like big plans for your firm in the future. Like, what are you guys just like plugging away?
We are plugging away. We, between COVID and just being kind of so swamped with projects and not getting to photograph, I think before the end of 2021, I think we have like 7 shoots lined up, which is a lot. And they don't even begin, actually we have one later this month, but then they don't really begin in earnest, I think till like September. And so I feel like we are going to be on the photography train, which is really exciting. It's really important. I would add that to any new designers too, is like, do what you can to photograph your work professionally. It's really important. It feels expensive. It is expensive, but like it's super important. So we're going to be doing a ton of photography. I'm excited. I haven't been back to the Bay Area since pre-COVID. So I think Melissa and I are both going to start kind of traveling again here in a little bit. So to see construction projects that have been trucking along for the last 14 or 15 months is very exciting for us.
That is exciting. And getting everything photographed, I mean, that's going to feel so good.
It's going to feel so good, even though it sounds very exhausting. I can already feel it, but I'm like, okay.
Daunting, but really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate it. And I just want to thank everyone who joined. And I want to thank our agent showroom, Dixon Designs. Thank you for having us host a chat. And to obviously the Seattle Design Center. This is so fun. I have never participated in the market days, and this is really cool, really fun.
Yes.
Have you done these, Julie? Have you done these before?
I haven't done it in Seattle. I've been on live panels, but they've been in California.
Okay. So. I know, this was really fun. I was like, oh, Seattle, I love you. You're like in my world now, on my radar.
Oh, good. Yes. Don't forget about us. A lot of good design on here.
No way. And again, Julie, thank you so much for your time. And
thanks
everybody out there. Yes. And everyone out there, thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of the week. And I hope to see everyone live and in person one of these days.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds good.
Bye, Julie. Thank you so much, ladies. Great job.
Gina. Thank you.
Bye.